And then he was kind of doing some more shows, and he was starting to write stuff that was a little more aggressive. And so he wanted to do some shows from, doing his solo thing or whatever. And we just kept finding ourselves going in this other direction. And so it just sort of morphed into the Secret Service. And I thought, wow, this is great. This is, I can write for this. It was just really simple. It wasn't like, well, if you like this and there's this hyphen and that hyphen and dash this. It's just kind of straightforward rock, and it was so much fun. The shows were so much fun. So, I kind of ponied up the dough and said, let's make a record, and took it down to the Zebra Ranch to cut basic tracks, did vocals and minor overdubs with Pete Matthews in his little room, and then mixed it with Jeff Powell at Ardent. And for a minute there, it kind of, bubbled up. Came out well. Just we weren't really able to get it off the ground in terms of touring. Well, at that point, everybody was in their 30s, and it was just kind of more people had day jobs, and it was harder to get them, out on tour. So I could foot the bill for the record, but I couldn't keep going with that, And then concurrently, it was just like I would kind of dip out and play with the Bloodthirsty Lovers, and that, and then played with Amy, So things I had to work, So it's like if there's a tour, and a chance to make records and release them, I'm going to do that. So they just kind of got caught in the wayside, but it was fun. It's a fun band.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you got involved with the Bloodthirsty Lovers and what that was like?
Yeah, that was intense. Again, always been a fan of the Grifters, admirer of Dave Schaus. So Paul Taylor was playing with the Bloodthirsty Lovers, and their third guy, kind of keyboard player, utility dude, he went on. He just didn't want to be in a band anymore, so they approached me. This must have been like 2003. And, hey, we're, kind of we got some shows lined up. Do you want to do this? And initially I was just sort of playing keyboards, which I'm all right at, but, not that great, and some bass. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I learned the stuff, and it was like, okay, we got to tour with Modest Mouse. Like, great. So my first show with him was in front of, like, I don't know how many thousand people, like the House of Blues or whatever, with Modest Mouse. And I'm like, we're first, so, you're having to get on stage real fast. And I'm having to set up all this MIDI equipment, and, like, it's kind of nerve-wracking. But, that went on for a while, and then we were looking to do another record. And then eventually it got to where it was just me and Dave, and that's where we did The Delicate Seam. The first record was just all Dave. And then the second record was, we had Kevin March, who had played with Dave's previous band, Those Bastard Souls. He was in town for a day, and we went to Easley's and just said, okay, we're just going to throw these songs at you. I mean, he hadn't heard anything. We just played them down, and he just kind of reacted to them, and those are our drum tracks. Kevin's great. Probably the Dam Builders, really fantastic drummer, great musician. So from there, we just sort of took it to our houses and kind of home recorded it, and then would take it and mix it somewhere else. Kevin Houston mixed it. It sounds unreal. Put it out, toured it some more, and then it kind of ran its course. I think Dave tends to move on, and when he's done, he's done. So we were just kind of done. But that record, The Delicate Seam, is the only record that I've been a part of that I listen to as a fan. I think it has a lot to do with Dave's voice, but I love everything about it. I love the way the record sounds. I loved making it, and so like it's often played at the house. It's fun.
So can you talk a little bit more about Amy LaVere and how that experience was, and how you ended up doing that?
Right.
What you learned from it.
So once again, Paul Taylor was playing with Amy LaVere, and she'd had a couple different guitar players. One of them lived in Nashville. It was just always hard to get people to stick, She'd been playing with Jason Freeman, but he was kind of doing his own thing. Once again, they had a tour coming up, opening up for somebody. This time it was Glenn Hansard from The Frames, who was just, the movie Once had just come out, and he was touring that. Yeah. So we got this opening tour. Can you do it? I was like, yeah, sure. So learned a bunch of songs, practiced a bunch, went out on tour. But immediately it kind of was obvious that, first of all, from Paul and I have been playing together for so long, we immediately just kind of had a common vernacular with each other. we worked really well with Amy, and it just kind of coalesced into a really tight, really good 3-piece. And for me, I had pretty much always played in bands with, you know, another guitar player or some kind of crazy keyboard or something else making some kind of racket. So this was upright bass, you know, which is not quite as, it's just not as loud as, you know, an electric bass, and drums and guitar. I was the only kind of like, you know, multi-timbered melodic information coming out of that band, you know. I mean, there's bass and voice, but like the guitar was all me, and it was like a lot of space, which was great because you could really, I mean, I could play all the guitar I wanted to, you know, and learning how to fill up the right spaces and what to play, and also the fact that, you know, if there's a hideous guitar clam, there's no hiding it, you know. Yeah, it's like, that was me. So that really kept me on my toes, and just that amount of space, and especially in her music, the way she puts things together.